Today's message is about re-energizing and recharging. And it was great. Last night I also went out with Lynn and Nancy was there. We're at Lost Dutchman State Park, yep, and Bill was there and his wife. And we were out there for Dr. Sky. So Dr. Sky is actually a scientist, an astronomer type that he always, from time to time, does something out at Lost Dutchman State Park. And he's also on KTAR, and he goes to all sorts of space types of symposiums. And he was out there doing a sky show as we were welcoming the moon coming over the mountain. And it was just so amazing to see the energy of that moon, how bright it was. And it was interesting because for the past 2 nights previous, I was waking up at 3 in the morning and actually went outside, because that's where we're staying, Lost Dutchman State Park, and would go outside and just sit there watching the moon descend in the horizon. And just so beautiful watching this happen. And it's amazing, nature and what it does to re-energize us when we just look at the beauty around us. So we're going to talk about this re-energizing and recharging. Let's put the first slide up. I've got an affirmation for today's lesson. Let's repeat it together. God's power flowing through me re-energizes and recharges my being. And so, the way lessons work for me, I put a structure to them about midweek, and then things start bubbling up, and I start seeing things that might weave into the lesson. And then Saturday is where it kind of all starts coming together. And so I do a little bit of lesson, and then I'll rest. I'll take a breather. And so how many of you saw the Kentucky Derby yesterday? Wow! And so here you had a horse in the number 19 position, highly improbable that that horse would win. And so it was interesting watching the replay of the horse, because the horse came about mid-tack and just settled in and just kind of rested there for a while. Recharged there, drafted. I don't know if horses draft or not. We just kind of sat there, waiting for the right moment. And then all of a sudden, with a burst of energy, this horse just shoots out and actually ends up winning the Kentucky Derby. The other amazing part of that was it was the first time the jockey had actually ran in the Kentucky Derby. So it was quite amazing to see just the perfect flow of how that horse, and then knew exactly when to turn on the power, and the jockey and horse running together. It was amazing. And so I was just kind of looking at that and thinking about this whole lesson about how do we re-energize and recharge. And this weekend is also the debut of the new Avengers movie. So I don't know how many of you are going to see that or not. How many of you are going to see it? Already seen it? Okay, we got some Avengers people. So Marvel Comics, go ahead and put up the next slide. Marvel Comics were an important part of my childhood. So that was my education. And for me, the superhero of my childhood was Batman. Yeah, all right, Batman. I mean, this is how important Batman was to me. So I actually learned to sew so I could make my own Batman headgear with the ears and everything and the holes cut out for the eyes. And I took some material of my mother's and made a nice black cape. And then I dressed all in black, and I made the little back for my chest. And I didn't stop there. So needed a utility belt, and so I actually found a back periscope that I could actually look in windows at night. And so I had that on my utility belt. I made a grappling hook. I don't know where I got metal enough for that grappling hook, but it had rope on it, and then I would actually hoist that up to rooftops, and I would climb up at night on garage roofs, and then I'd jump from roof to roof. Just what I did at night. Well, I didn't stop there. And so I had a black roll-fast bicycle, and I made a back chute for it, a drag chute, and it had the little back symbol that I put on it. Why is your mouth hanging open? It had the back symbol on it and everything, and I get in all my Batman gear, and we lived on a hill in Schenectady, New York, and then I get on my bicycle, and I had a little cord for my drag chute, and I zipped down, the cape's flying, and then at the perfect time before we went to the cross street, I pull my drag chute, and stop my bicycle. Batman go when he needs to recharge and re-energize? The Bat Cave. So I had this idea. We had this extra room in our house. We lived in a flat, second story, and I had this idea, why don't I make a Bat Cave? And so I went down to the corner stores and got the biggest boxes I could get and went to a hardware store that sold refrigerators and got refrigerator boxes. Can you imagine this little kid, 8 years old, carrying these huge boxes by hand, going from the stores to home? And so I got these boxes, and I had this knife, this hefty knife, and I was cutting them and just made this little Bat Cave that went all around the room. I moved everything from the side walls so that I could get the cave all the way around the room. And so it was one tunnel that encapsulated the whole room. And then I had my little back door to my cave. And it didn't stop there. So I needed lights. So I grabbed lamps and I'd bring them in, and I had cutouts, and I had my little Bat control panel and took cushions from chairs. And so I was all set in my Bat Cave. I even wired it all together so that my mother couldn't take it apart. And so, whenever she got angry at me, where did I go? My Bat Cave. And one time I remember her trying to tear it apart. She couldn't do it. But, I would sit in there for hours, just dreaming, recharging, re-energizing. It was my place to go. I loved it. And then it was interesting. Last summer, so now Lynn and I are full-time RVers. For those of you that have been and heard some of the other lessons, that's what we do. That's where we live. We live in an RV. And last summer, we went up California, kind of the heart of California, and came upon Shasta Lake Caverns. You familiar with that?
Beautiful.
Yeah, it's very beautiful. You have to applaud if you like. Yeah, okay. Gorgeous. Yeah. And so we took our RV in there. You ever been down there on that winding road? Oh my God. Anyway, we got down there by the grace of God, and we went to the caverns, and then we left there, and our next stop was near Ashland, Oregon, and that's where we're going to camp for that evening. And we found this Elks Lodge RV park in the middle of nowhere, this beautiful meadow, and we parked our RV there, gorgeous setting, trees and sounds of birds when we arrived, and insects everywhere, just the sound of nature. And so we turned in early, and then about 12 o'clock, I woke up, and I heard something I'd never heard before. And it sounded like, okay. And I just kind of lay there with my eyes open, and we had just enough light from the little LED sensors and night lights and that to see something was flying around. And so I sensed Lynn was kind of awaking too, and I said, honey, did something just fly by? And she said, yeah, I think so. And sure enough, I said, I think it's a bat. And she hides under the covers and said, okay. And then I said, well, why don't we just lay here? I'll deal with it in the morning. And the bat's going, I said, okay, I don't think I can deal with it in the morning. So I got up and I remembered all the movies that you want to get down low because you don't want the bat to get in your hair, right? And so I get down low, and this bat is circling around, comes in the bedroom, and then flies out to the other room. And so we have these pocket doors that separate our rooms. And so the first one, I wait for the bat to come through. Then it goes out, and I shut the first pocket door. Lynn, were you following me? I don't remember.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah. She's in the bedroom. And so now I'm in the bathroom, and I'm waiting for the bat to come again. So it comes, and then there's another pocket door, and I close that. So now I'm in the living room. It's about a 10 by 10 room with me, our cat Ozzy, and this bat circling around the ceiling. And I'm watching Ozzy going, eyes are really big, not doing anything. And so I said, okay, what do I do about a bat? I never had this training. And so I said, okay, well, I have nothing to catch it with. And why don't I just go open the door and maybe the bat will fly out? And then I'm thinking, or other bats will fly in. And so I opened the door and I'm watching the bat flutter around, and then I noticed the cat's gone. The cat has just gone out the door. So I grabbed the cat and said, no, you in, you out. And then it was amazing. It was just like, just after I said it, this bat goes, and out the door, and then I closed the door and handled the bat. And then I realized, as I'm putting this lesson together, I have a new bat cave. And so our RV is actually our bat cave. It's our sanctuary that we can take to the beauty of nature and just enjoy things like the moon we saw last night, near the superstitions, and just amazing places. And so for us, that's how we energize and recharge. And as I'm putting this lesson together, I got thinking about Jesus and all the passages in the Bible on what Jesus did right before he did something miraculous. And so I actually started with Moses, since we knew Moses was 40 years in the desert, in the wilderness. And this is what they said about Moses. So this was just about his trip to Mount Sinai. An angel appeared to him in the wilderness of Mount Sinai in the flame of a burning bush. And then thinking about Jesus, just before he fed the 4,000 or 5,000 people, loaves and fishes, here's what it said. He withdrew from there in a boat to a deserted place by himself. And so there he sat. And then eventually the multitude followed. And there they were. It was growing dark and needed to feed them. There was no place for them to go. And so why not? We'll just take these loaves and fishes and we'll feed the multitude. Jesus, just before walking on water, he went up to the mountaintop to pray by himself. When evening came, he was there alone. And so there he was alone, and the winds apparently took his boat away. And the only way he could get back was walk on the water. So what are you going to do? So he walked on the water to get back. So before he cured many people, he passed along the Sea of Galilee, and he went up to the mountain where he sat down. And there he sat, and there people came, and there he healed. Just before his transfiguration, Jesus took with him Peter and James and his brother John and led them to a high mountain by themselves. And he was transfigured before them. And his face shone like the sun, and his clothes became dazzling white. So there they got to witness what happened to Jesus when he went into the wilderness, when he was re-energizing and recharging just before doing something miraculous. The signs of an end of an age. When he was sitting on the Mount of Olives, the disciples came to him privately. So there he was sitting, and there they came one by one to learn from a very deep place about him. And then you know about the Garden of Gethsemane and him going off to pray as the disciples slept. And then when he returned after the ascension, now the 11 disciples went to Galilee, to the mountain to which Jesus had directed them. So the mountain to which they had been before, where they experienced this incredible energy. So Jesus knew how to re-energize and recharge. And what I'm really getting about re-energizing, it's about reconfirming our commitment to whatever path we're here. And Tom came up to me today, and he keeps sharing the evolution of his book and his teaching. And he has this brilliant idea. And it's about a pre-bucket party. And so why wait to kick the bucket to have a party? And I think that's brilliant. So throw a party, if you know, it's just about time, and we're just going to have a good time going out. Do ideas like that, do you allow time for them to bubble up within you? Do you have a place of solitude, a place where you can recharge, a place where you get these amazing ideas. Where is it for you? Lynn and I last Sunday decided, things were kind of getting stuck. Things were getting stuck with my clients. I was making calls and they weren't calling back. I was emailing and nothing was happening. The new 10-year edition of the book, it's getting about ready for us to now make it an ebook and then print it. And I wasn't hearing back from the key person that's going to format it to do that. And it's been a couple weeks. And so all these things were getting stuck. And what we've learned is whenever things are getting stuck, we need to do something different. It usually involves us getting away to the wilderness to shift the energy in some way, shape, or form. So last Sunday, we decided to take a drive up to Sedona. Sedona is a place that always re-energizes us and recharges us. And so as we're driving up there, we decided, why don't we just take a clean piece of paper and why don't we list those things that are dreams? So in essence, our bucket list. Why don't we list our dreams? We've done it before, but let's start new. What's on our mind, what's in our heart right now? And so we started listing places that we want to visit, cultures we want to experience, things we want to do in how we serve the world, how we express ourselves, and just listed them, just what they were, didn't worry about how to do them. And then from that whole list we said, what is one thing that if we could experience it this year, that would be a great thing to experience on the list. So we selected one of those. And then we got to Sedona. Go ahead and put the next picture up. And then we got to Sedona. And that's Bell Rock in the background. If you haven't hiked, there's a nice gentle path that takes you around Bell Rock. And there's another butte called Courthouse Butte. And so if you have time to spend a nice half a day, that's a great way to do it. Every time we go to Sedona, it just recharges us. We feel the energy of the place as soon as we enter it. It's like we breathe easier. It's like we can feel God's presence and power in a great way. And so for us, it's always a place for us to go when we want to get away to the wilderness. And so we enjoyed that day. And I got thinking also about one of the founders of Unity, Myrtle Fillmore. And if you haven't gotten this book, which is Healing Letters by Myrtle, it's the essence of what Unity was founded on. It was what she was experiencing as the heart of how to express spirit through us. For her, it was for healing, but it went in so many other directions. And there was a passage that just jumped out at me that I think plays in very well to how do we re-energize? How do we get that power to move through us in an incredible way? She said this: God is the one perfect life flowing through us. God is the one pure substance out of which our organism is formed. God is the power that gives us motive power, the strength that holds us upright and allows us to exercise our members. The wisdom that gives us intelligence in every cell of our organism, every thought of our minds. God is the only reality of us. All else is but a shadow that is cast by some foolish belief or unwise combination of thoughts and the elements of being. We must prove here and now for ourselves our faith in God as omnipresent good and eternal life. God in the midst of us is a great steady stream of renewing and cleansing and vitalizing life. We can have the use of this life which will open up the channels of its flow. There's an amazing thing that happens when we connect with nature. There seems to be an easier flow that happens to get away from the busyness of life when things seem to be getting stuck. It seems to unclog whatever is blocking to allow it to flow in a great way. And so I think that's what the lesson is really about. And so sometimes it's about going to a bat cave. It's funny because Robin had this great plan before she went off to the wedding of one of her children in Mexico. And so her plan was, I'm going to schedule someone from Unity for lunch and dinner every day until I get back. Well, Joel had enough of that until Sunday evening. And then it wore him out. And he had to go back to his cave. And so, I actually called him and I didn't get him because he wasn't answering his phone, but he left a message and said, I just need to see no one for the rest of the week. And I get why. And so for him, this energy of healing is important. Because what he's been doing is taking a clear slate, a clear page. And he's been saying, okay, what's next for me? What are my dreams and aspirations? What is it I want to do with the rest of my life? What is it that is going to re-energize and recharge me? And he's been actively doing that. So I understand why he needs to go to his cave. So for you, where is your cave? What is it that really you can go to that place of solitude? It might be a place in your garden. It could be a particular place close by here. Desert Botanical Garden, Boyce Thompson Arboretum. What is it for you that when you get there, you just breathe easier and it's like it fills you again? And you can do that even without going to a place. You can do it by closing your eyes and picturing yourself in whatever place that is for you in secret. What's really been incredible is how this congregation is coming together for re-energizing and recharging itself. So on April 15th, we actually had a first of many fellowship sessions to get your ideas of what is it that you want to see here that's going to re-energize and recharge this place into its new birth, its new beginning. Why don't we go get the next slide up there, and then I'll control the slides from here. And so what we did is we only had two simple questions for the last fellowship session. And in essence was, what are your questions and what are your thoughts? And that was it. That was the only structure that was put to it. And from that, took the information. So I took it, I said, okay, what are the categories that these seem to fall into? What are the overreaching questions? And then there's actually some sub-questions too. That on the 20th of May, after the second service, is going to be our second fellowship question, our second fellowship session. And it's there that the board and the staff will be there to answer your questions. And so here are the questions. So Tony, hopefully you're okay with me showing the questions. So these are draft questions, and they were this. So first of all, what is Joel's status? So thank you for letting us know his status. And so we'll keep you updated on that. And he's actually going to be here on June 17th giving the lesson. And so that'll be his lesson. And he says he wants it to be a lesson that'll shake you up. So we don't know what that means, but I think you'll have to be here to see it. And then what is our transition plan? So there definitely is a plan in place. And as a matter of fact, possible transition ministers are being contacted. And so already we're looking at what are some people that can help to take us through this period of time. What do we value as a spiritual community? So this goes back to, so what about your mission? You want to keep the mission the same, the vision, the values of the ministry, or is it time to refine them, to move forward in a new and different way? And so that'll be part of the process. What is our present and future leadership plan? So there's definitely a strong leadership team in place. The board is incredible in how they're looking at this. And Joel is adding his input from where he's at as well. And the staff is amazing. And so there's such a great foundation of people that are leading this ministry. And there indeed is a plan in how to move forward. But yet also to keep it flexible, to keep it, the way Joel likes to say, morphing as you go, so that you don't rush the process, but allow it to unfold. How do we grow our membership and thrive financially? So how do you do the things you want to do as a ministry, and how do you all contribute to doing that? And it's great to see you. All these smiley faces, these are bricks that are sold so far, right? So we have some ways to go, but yet we're making some momentum. And the object of this is to actually get it paid for by the time Joel retires. So in essence, it's the way to celebrate Joel's legacy in the ministry, is to have that sign. How should we communicate information? So what ways do you like to receive information here? Whether it's about classes, whether it's about what's happening in the ministry, whether it's happening with board activity, whatever it happens to be. And so we're looking at that. How do we maintain sufficient staff and volunteers for our activities and not burn them out? And so how do we get to share the wealth here? What changes should be considered for the Sunday service? So everything's open to possibility. So what is it like? What is the energy? What are different types of things? Do you like the Lord's Prayer? Don't like the Lord's Prayer? Like to see a different version of it? Like to see a different meditation song? Blah, blah, blah. So get Ray Madaghiele off the stage? Blah, blah, blah. What is our music preference? What do you like? What do you enjoy? What uplifts you? What's the type of energy that you want to see? What educational opportunities should be offered? So class and study groups, that type of thing. What would you like to see for youth and family? So would you like to see them more involved in the service? Would you like to see different types of programs? What do you want to see? And then the last overreaching question, what do you want to see regarding the facility? So any changes? What do you see? So these are the questions. So on May 20th and maybe even in different ways before then, the board's going to start answering these questions the best they can and then continuing to gather the questions that you have until you get clarity. So I just want to give you a sense of it because it's a new creation and it's a great creation and it's going to revitalize and re-energize the congregation to move forward in a new and great way. So Joel was always going to retire at some point in time. I'm glad he didn't decide to leave right here on this stage. And so he actually has a new birth that he gets to do. And so that's quite exciting. So with that, it's incredible to think that we can at any point in time re-energize and recharge. So how do you do it? So first of all, getting a good night's rest is always a good idea. If you wake up at 3 in the morning to look at the moon, what are you going to do? Take a nap. Drinking plenty of water is a great way to recharge, especially here in the desert. Definitely having a place that you can go. So this congregation, people that are your support system, is re-energizing, is recharging. And so all of that, as you go throughout this week, just want you to think in terms of how you could re-energize and recharge. And with that, why don't we end with the affirmation? God's power flowing through me re-energizes and recharges my being.